Hi class, this is our video which will supplement our class that we're going to have in person tomorrow, and I'm going to do a little instructional video on eMoney. There's also a corresponding assignment that will be due basically a week from Thursday. Technically it's due at Wednesday at 11:59, but that will be fine. So I'm going to share the screen right now. And I'm going to cover pretty much most of what's going to be covered in that homework assignment. So really, a lot of what you have to do here is follow along. Just for client anonymity, I just entered the name of a new client here, Sample and Spouse Johnson. On the main page, I just went in the upper right-hand corner. There's a bar that says add a new client or add a new lead. For the purpose of this class, it doesn't really matter, but you can go ahead and add them as a lead, other than ask for their name and birthday, and that's what populates here. So some of the basics on building out an initial profile. Right here, we have someone who's 41, the other person here is 32. We have them both retiring at 65 and living till 90. Financial priorities. I don't do a whole lot with this tab. It's kind of a funky notes tab. It's not really too functional in my view. And there's other resources I use to keep more detailed notes. You can add things like, hey, they are favoring saving for college, investment management, and then caring for parents. But again, there's more robust ways to add notes and other tools I use. Goals. This is where you would set your spending goal. Now, in a perfect world, you know you're spending, but in reality, that's generally not the case. Oftentimes, clients and or prospects will give me a number that is aspirational. They're like, oh, we'll have to go home and check our electric bill. It's like, I really don't want them to do that. I'd rather have them set a number that's higher, like, oh, we think we spend, $2,000 a week. You think that would be enough? That'd be about $104,000 of spending a year. So, 104,000, I'd say, all right, let's just round that up to 110 or 115. So we use 110,000. Now this is a spending number. This is not how much they earn. If you're spending 110, you probably need to be making a little bit more than 140 to be able to spend 110. And we have this spending goal. This is in retirement. You'll also want to go make sure that the spending goal is for current as well. Now for this exercise, we're going to keep the spending goal the same. One thing the tool does is it increases the spending goal with inflation. So in 2046, you'll be spending today's equivalent of 110,000. That might really be in 2046. That number could be 200,000 in future dollars. You can also do funkier things like have the spending be stepped up or phased out. So maybe you spend 110, now when you're retired and the kids are gone, maybe you bring it down to 100. And then maybe once one of the husband or wife passes away, you drop by another 10. But a lot of times I'll leave it static. It's more conservative. You can enter in estate tax here as well. So we'll use Massachusetts. If we go to back to goals, why don't we go back to actually friends and family, and we'll add a child. We'll do Sample Johnson Jr. And Johnson Jr. was born in 2012. We'll enter a new goal here for college education. One thing this tool will do is once you click on Sample Johnson's Jr.'s name, it will default to the years he's supposed to be enrolled in college. So you don't have to make any changes. You don't have to do any guesses. You enter in his birth date and you drop him down as the beneficiary of the education goal. You don't have to name the institution. Oftentimes for college education, I'll just populate in as a goal $50,000 a year of real spending. So, this is going to be 8 years from now, effectively. So we'll show you what that looks like as well, too. So right now we have them going to 4 years. This grows at 2.3% a year. So, 10 years from now, theoretically, this 50,000 might end up being like 60,000+ of future dollars. You can dedicate a pool of assets to fund it. We haven't entered any net worth in yet. So you can have it potentially draw down a college savings plan first before you pay for it out of a taxable account. But I generally select this as no dedicated funding, because I'm always selecting, basically it's going to say this is a high priority goal, the living expenses plus juniors college education. So we'll fund it no matter what. Effectively, we'll dig into other accounts if there's not a college account. Net worth, I mentioned that you had $100,000 in cash. Cash automatically grows at the rate of inflation, 2.3%, although you're probably not really getting 2.3% on cash, generally speaking. Not yet, anyway. And I also mentioned that you'd have a qualified retirement account, 401k. We'll call this samples 401k. And you have 400,000 in it. This is where you have some choice on discretion. And for this exercise, you can choose whatever one you feel most comfortable with. How aggressive are you going to make the portfolio, right? So generally speaking, someone who's fairly balanced, I'm probably going to go and model them out at enhanced or income going forward. Even assuming, long-term historical averages kick in, I don't think the last 10 years are going to be, the next 10 years are going to be like the last 10. The reason the aggressive mix is very high is because eMoney uses 10-year historical averages as the forward assumption. So I think some of these assumptions might be a little frothy. I'm going to go at 6.4% return now and in retirement. So, you also have the ability to step this down to lower rates of return. Another item here, we're going to assume sample continues to contribute to his 401k plan. Usually traditional, normal contribution. If someone doesn't know, what I'll assume is that they contribute 6 and their employer matches 50 cents on the dollar up to 3%. So basically they put in 6, their employer puts in 3. So this is going to be based on percent of salary. 6% the salary until they're 65 is going to go into that account. And then we do it again. This time it's the employer contribution. And I didn't mention this part in the homework, but I would love to see some of you guys do this part too. And again, percent of salary, this is the employer contribution, 3%. So again, you're getting 6% of salary and then the employer is kicking in 3. So now we go back to the overview, see what this looks like. We just see a summary here. Oh yeah, we didn't add something else here. The thing about getting the house, I'll show you where to add that. And this will be second part of the homework assignment, which will be due probably the week after next. But this is the decision center. I can already tell you something's wrong here because their money runs out pretty quickly. So let's go see what I did wrong. I left off income. So we'll go sample salary. And we said 125. Say the spouse. salary. He or she makes 75. Make sure I associate the spouse salary with the spouse and sample salary with sample. Another thing I would do, just as a best practice, let's say the spouse didn't have a 401k. I would say, well, Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, I think that your spouse should have a 401k plan or some kind of retirement plan, and she should start contributing, or he or she should start contributing. So what I would do there is I would just create spouse 401k plan, and I would just put $1 in it as a placeholder, and then assign that 6.4% rate of return. And the reason I do this now is because under savings and contributions, I can go to the spouse's 401k and say that he or she is contributing 6%. And I have to make sure it's not of all earned income, it's on the spouse. I actually should probably go correct that here too. All in it should be under samples. And then again, the spouse contribution, the employer contribution, we'll assume that they're going to match 3%. And now we have both of them having a 401k plan. Back to the plans. This is kind of where all the magic happens. You go to plans, you go into the decision center. And this shows what we would expect their portfolio to look like over a lifetime. So, we see their portfolio grow pretty significantly up until retirement. And then it continues to grow until the spouse turns 65. And then the income, their savings starts to decelerate a bit and kind of goes flat after the age of 90. So one of the things I'll show you here is the present value. $5 million or close to 6, sounds great. But what does this look like in today's dollars? In today's dollars, they're retiring at 65 with the feeling of $2 million of today's money. And that probably means you can kick off probably 5%, so $100,000 of interest and growth every year. And then really their assets in terms of spending power don't really grow after retirement. They shrink, which makes sense. So that's one chart. Another one here is the Monte Carlo. Just loading. The Monte Carlo asset spread will give us a range of outcomes. This assumes it's like 60% accuracy. You're excluding the top and bottom worst and best 20% scenarios in any given year. And the farther out, the wider the band gets. And, when it's not that far out, like 10 years out, we're like, yeah, we're confident, that you would have between 900 and 1.25 million. There's another drop down box here for the Monte Carlo. And that excludes not the top and bottom 20%. It excludes the top and bottom 2.5%. So this actually is a wider spread and it's more extreme. So what it says here is that if, the last 10 years of your life are in the Great Depression, you might be in debt 500 grand. That's not that bad. And if it's a raging bull market, you might end up with $8 million when you pass away. The last chart here is a cash flow chart. It kind of shows year by year what we would expect to happen within the client accounts. So the red line is their spending line. So what it shows here is that they have a greater ability to spend for another number of years. But what happens in these 4 years right here, 2030 to 2033? Anyone want to take a guess? It's that college spending goal we put in there, right? That's a huge chunk of money that they're going to have outflowing out of their accounts, and it's going to bump up their spending. And what it's telling me here is that we should even with they're going to have to withdraw about 15 grand a year to cover that, above and beyond what they're already earning. And then again, they go back into savings mode. So for a few years, they go into withdrawal mode and then back to savings mode into retirement. The light blue is a salary bonus. The dark blue, which occurs later, is Social Security. The Social Security from here to here, why it's elevated and then shrinks, is the older spouse passes away, the young one remains alive. And the reason why it's lower here is because the older spouse is taking Social Security because they're older, while the other one doesn't take it until here. The orange line is withdrawals. So in retirement, I could say that, hey, when you retire first year, I would expect you to need to withdraw with about $80,000 a year to be able to fund your lifestyle. That's in present value. Let's go back to future value, by the way. Doesn't matter too much for this exercise. The outcome is the same. And again, this is just shown with inflation. So again, 2046, you need to withdraw about 135, but you'll be getting about 56 in Social Security. And it's saying your total expenses, which includes your actual expenses plus taxes, and one will be about 190 in the year 2046. And then you can go down through and look at this year by year. Again, you see here, the spending goal, total expenses are 194. And then the following year, it jumps to 258, stays elevated for a few years before dropping again. That's the college expenses. And this is what's going to need to be net withdrawn during those years. We project. And again, where it gets different again is in retirement, saying here, how much they would potentially need to withdraw from the portfolio in any given year. And the report I want to see, you go to presentations. And the only report I want to see here is the cash flow report. So you can go ahead and just click on this. And download and archive the PDF. And just taking a second to load here. This is, here we go, finally loaded. And effectively, this is the report I'm going to want you to upload. I lied. It sent the whole report to you, so I'll try this one more time. Unfortunately, what you're going to have to do here is go back to the presentation under plans. Actually, you know what? I'll make it easy for you. Just download the whole thing. So just hit this download button. You can download every page in the report. And then what I want you to do is upload that outcome. So I'll give you a very detailed report. And for the assignment, I want you to upload what you have there. You have a few variables you can pick here. It's like what your spending goal is, how many kids you have, are you married, are you single, how does that impact you? And again, what does this file look like? It's pretty big. It's 67 pages. I think that's fine. I'm just second guessing myself if I should have you upload the whole thing. So I'm going to reverse course one more time. I won't go through this in the little session we have here today, but the only report I want you to do and upload for me is this cash flow report. The system is a little wonky in terms of unchecking the boxes, but once you uncheck all the boxes and just leave the cash flow report checked and then generate the PDF, that's going to give you like a 2 or 3 page upload. So let's stick with that. So uncheck all these boxes and we'll go through this. I might as well just do it while I'm here with you guys so you guys can, it's pretty basic, but see me unchecking these boxes. So hopefully you guys found this exercise helpful and useful. We're going to continue integrating eMoney into the classroom and get you guys certified in the tool. And we're almost done here. You figure they could have a programmer do a little bit better job on these checkbox things. It's not very intuitive. But the point is that I would never send somebody the 67-page report, but I have the flexibility to send pages that are important to people. You know, one report I don't use too often is longevity risk. We have people living till 90 in the model. But what I can show here is like, what's the risk if you live another 10 years? It's a good problem, right? You're going to live till 100 instead of 90. But that longevity chart will show you that. We won't do that. I've unchecked all the boxes. Here's the cash flow report. We're going to download and archive that PDF one more time. And here you go, 5 pages, cash flow by year. So this is what I want to see from you guys. So hopefully that was helpful. And I'm looking forward to seeing you guys upload the reports. Shouldn't be too difficult of an assignment, but please let me know if you have any questions and looking forward to answering them. Have a great night.